I think it is important to understand that I didn't like so much embracing portraiture as it was a way to sort of keep the other labels at bay. I've been doing this for over 45 years, and it's like, you get labeled something. Like when I was, at Rolling Stone, I was a rock and roll photographer, and I was Vanity Fair, I was a celebrity photographer. It's like, I'm just a photographer. And I think one of the things I love about photography is how big it is and what latitude it has. My God, you guys are so attractive. I mean, it's like, seriously. Is that just being young? I don't know what it is. Oh my God. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So do you know each other in your classes?
Yeah.
Are you all?
Yeah.
Are you overlapping? Because there's different years, right?
Yeah.
A lot of different years. Why don't we just go around and say your name and tell me what year you're in and what you were hoping, to do.
Mika Sperling. I'm from Germany originally.
Yeah.
I came here last year. Yeah. But because you mentioned photojournalism, there was a time when I thought I was gonna go into that direction, but
Which direction?
more photojournalism. But
Yeah.
I realized then that I was much more interested in documentary and personal projects and being more the author and not just the fly on the wall. I can't help it. Yeah, you're right when you say that photography, I think in a really weird time right now where we criticize photojournalists for...
It's like a heyday for photojournalists.
Yeah,
It's such a
exactly.
great moment for photojournalism. I mean, it's like, to me, it's the most powerful work being done right now. Is photojournalism. I run to the door to get my New York Times in the morning because I still look at the paper, and I look at the front page and I see what photograph they use, how they use it, what placement it has. I turn into the paper, and the newspaper itself is actually running more photo stories, inside. I don't really look at it online. Do you?
I do, yeah, I look a lot online. Yeah.
It's not as satisfying as looking, at the paper. I don't know if many of you know this, but while still going to school here at the Art Institute, I started working for Rolling Stone magazine. And I was, at that time, Life magazine was still going, and there was, and the photojournalism in Life was so compelling, even though I was brought up on Robert Frank and Cartier-Bresson, I thought, I wanted to be, a photojournalist. But I did discover, and there are a lot of reasons why, which would take, at least, several days to explain, but I did come to the same place where I felt like I had a stronger voice outside of photojournalism. That if I liked having a point of view, and I thought that, you're supposed to stay relatively objective, in your journalism.
And where's the line? I mean, I don't...
That would be a whole chapter. I'm gonna write that down. Where? Actually, I did want to write that down. Where's the line? Oh, that's such a good line. And trust me, it's something that you will fight your whole life. Where's the line? When do you step in? When do you step out? I think if you really are out in the front lines of I don't just mean battlefields or war, that I think you are compelled to be more objective. But you still have your gut and your soul are going to direct a lot of how you photograph. The other thing is, when you work, let's say you work for a newspaper, you may not necessarily have control over what gets used. You will eventually. I've been doing this long enough to know that to see the photographs transformed and changed. I had met Arnold as early as 1976 in South Africa when he was filming Pumping Iron with George Butler, and he was there for the Mr. Universe contest there in South Africa. And he was kind of a showboat. And he was certainly bizarre to me because he was so big, physically big. And I just finished the Rolling Stones tour in 1975 and looking at Mick Jagger for about 6 months, you know, this skinny guy. And then here he was with Arnold Schwarzenegger, huge, very freaky. It was freaky to me. It was Diane Arbus time. It was not, you know, of the earth. And it was cartoonish to me, quite honestly. But there's a whole culture around it, and that was kind of fascinating to see this kind of world of bodybuilding. We went out to Hollywood and began doing films, and we were doing a cover story of him for Vanity Fair. It's, you know, many years of sittings, you know, with him, going over the years, and there were a couple more sittings, you know, even going up to when he was governor with Maria Shriver. And I actually did something. I actually photographed him. I did his wedding, come to think of it, with Maria Shriver in Hyannisport. You know, every now and then a subject comes along that you know it's going to be a big deal. Not necessarily to the magazine, but in this case, it was to Caitlin, and it meant a lot more than just trying to create a cover. It was really an emergence. It was of Caitlin into her next life. It was a transition into her next self. And it was really, seriously, it was an honor and a privilege to take part in that. I mean, Caitlin certainly had ideas. She had basically sequestered herself in her house. She hadn't gone out. It was helping her develop what she was going to look like and get her, you know, on the way and down the road. And I decided that we would do it right at her house, in her house, and work there. And that was a very smart idea because everything, you know, it felt comfortable for her, and proceeded to try, you know, different ideas and different dresses and different hair. It was just literally watching her be transformed. The first day she was very, very quiet. The second day, I mean, you're dealing with an Olympic athlete, and she was pretty much dragging us along. The second day, she was on her way. I thought it was enough that she would be, you know, transformed, and it was her announcement. But she definitely wanted to go further. I was trying the bustier with a leather jacket just to show the kind of transformation, because even though she was interested in looking like a woman, she was very much, she had a lot of masculine aspects to her, you know, being the athlete that she is. And, you know, she still liked driving fast cars and motorcycles and jumping out of planes, and she still was a rough and tough girl. So I like the idea of the leather jacket with the bustier. It did, you know, it just wasn't working. And we eventually pulled the jacket off, and there was this very simple photograph of her. I was excited about it because I love the idea of, when you first looked at the cover, at first glance, you would say, "Who's that?" You know, you didn't know, you know, who that was. There's this a large history that I'm very responsible to, and I mean, Zaha Hadid. I have photographs of her that I didn't really particularly like, and she died. And then I looked at the pictures, and I go, oh, her eyes are closed. She's sitting in this, you know, in the studio. I'm not really, I don't love my studio work, but I love these, suddenly I love these photographs. I think the idea that she's no longer with us, you know, the weight of that in these photographs. And I see that a lot. It's offensive to me when I hear people say, oh, you really got that person, that's it, or you have their soul. I mean, baloney. You have a little bit of someone that you're trying to sort of represent on a flat surface, you know, so to speak. And, you know, you're just not going to get that. You know, it doesn't work like that. I'm thinking about Alexander Fuller. I have a portrait of her that she looks like, you know, Dorothea Lange's Migrant Worker. I mean, she looks so ragged. And then there's another photograph of her standing next to her yurt. She lives in a yurt with her horse, and she looks, you know, so beautiful. And they're both her. And I ran them both. I struggled. Which one did I want to run? I said, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to run them both. I did the same thing with Sally Mann. There's a portrait of her in her studio where she prints her photographs. You know, I shot through the window, and you see the light in Virginia. And then there's a photograph of her down at the cabin where she photographed her children, you know, growing up. And it's such a different, introspective photograph. They're both her. David Hockney, 3 photographs, you know, in his bedroom. I love there's a photograph of him working in his car. He's using his car as like a studio, you know, because I really believe, you know, the studio is movable. He's in his car drawing, you know, a road near his home, and then in his bedroom also drawing his boyfriend at the time. Yes, I love the series. I do love the series. I think working, and I love the photo story, you know, which I feel is I wish it would come back, you know, on some level. The Showgirls was such an important series of photographs. They became a sort of turning point in my philosophy of portraits. I went out to Las Vegas. I met several showgirls in their costumes backstage in between their shows. A woman walked in, Susan McNamara, and she came in her street clothes, and I said, can I help you? And she said, no, I'm one of the showgirls. I said, no, I couldn't believe it. I mean, she had glasses on. I said, you know, please, let me photograph you the way you are right now. I photographed her as herself, and then she went and changed and put on her makeup. So the rest of the day, as the women came in, I asked if I could photograph them as themselves before they got ready, you know, before they put on their costumes and their makeup. And it was just revelatory. This was the first time it was really quite clear to me you needed 2 pictures to tell this story. And the juxtaposition of the woman in her costume and then as the way she was when she walked in. It's definitely the idea, the decisive moment that I was trying to sort of emulate for so many years, or the single photograph, sort of was thrown out the window. I mean, I think that's an elusive answer. I mean, elusive question, answer about what makes a great photograph. I mean, I think, like taking good photographs, I mean, I think it does come with experience. I mean, you may take a good photograph, you may not even know you took it. It's about how do you start to understand what you're doing, and I think that one more time, it comes with doing it. You have to do it. Also, I think that the perspective of what the photograph means to you and why you took it and what, you know, relationship you have to it, you know, you would have a better idea of if the photograph is a good photograph for yourself. I mean, there are photographs that I take that I long for someone to say, hey, that's a very nice photograph. And to me, I love the photograph. I'm thinking of the photograph of Agnes Martin, you know, sitting in the painting studio. I love that photograph because when I asked her what does she do when she comes to work, when she comes to paint, and she said, well, I sit here and wait to be inspired. And then she sat down on this bed, and you can't even see her face. And so the photograph is sort of mired in the experience of taking that picture. I think it's hard to say what is a good photograph. It's so connected with what you have, what feelings you have, for it. Your picture depends on what's in it, and it has nothing to do with the technology. I mean, it does and it doesn't, but it's the last thing you should worry about. You should really, you can have the best, what you think is the best equipment, and it doesn't help if you can't see. It takes years to understand how to see. I do think that the more you take photographs and the more you are, I remember just being sort of so surprised when I would see the imagery and what you got from a situation or something that, I literally couldn't believe it came out. Oh my God, this is like amazing. So I think it just takes doing it over and over and over and over. One of the reasons, I'm still doing it is I love to do it. I love to look, and it's different every single day. And you're photographing a different person. It's a whole different. Each person's different, and it doesn't. I'm never tired of going to work. Of going to take photographs. It's an adventure. After years and years and years of taking photographs and taking that rectangle that you get in your camera, you just instinctively know where to sort of place what you're seeing, and composing in that rectangle. It becomes an instinctual thing. Everything you do prepares you for when you don't have time to think about what you're doing. And I liked how the example the Sarajevo picture shows you. I was in Sarajevo doing portraits during the siege in 1993, and I was on the way, I was in a car on the way to photographing Miss Sarajevo, and literally right in front of me, a mortar exploded, a bomb exploded, and a young boy was killed, like literally right in front of the car. And I got out of the car and just took some photographs. I didn't even know what I was doing. And we put the boy in the car and took him to the hospital, but it was too late. Can't even quite remember taking the picture. I just did it, it's just an instinctual thing, but it's a simple, strong graphic, and so it's just a kind of an idea or a lesson that the more you do this, the more you're ready for anything.